Okay. I'm live and it literally took 25 minutes because I got so much junk and then the internet is overloaded. So that's what took me so long to go live. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about recording studios. I want to talk about recording schools, recording studios, and the recording studio business. Um, I was watching a video. I've seen this video before. It's called Reflection Sound Studios. They used to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they closed about 10 years ago. And it was a really, really nice studio. A Grammy Award winning group called REM recorded there. And now I went to Google Earth and I was looking at this studio, where it used to be and what's there now. It's some sort of another building, another business there. So they tore down and built a new building. But that it looked like that studio had been there since the 70s and they closed in 2014. And it kind of reminded me of the studio that uh, I used to work in Texas. Now it's I think it's what is that store? Let me Google it now. I can't even, man, I tell you when you get when you just can't remember crap. Um, I think it's some sort of print shop or something. Yeah, it used to be a 1018. Go back. I didn't want to do that. Uh, wow. It's some sort of artwork. We offer fabrics, artwork, furniture, lamps, or I don't know what this is. I don't know what it is now, but it used to be that's where the studio used to be. And then I was looking at the other studios that I've been to, and they're closed, and there are different businesses now. So kind of, and then I was thinking about, I saw some videos how the record plant in Los Angeles was closing, United in Los Angeles was closing. Right now, even Capitol Studios is closed right now. I was like, wow, even Capitol Studios is closed. So I know when it comes to the recording industry business, I know it's a what do you call it? It's a trickle effect. In other words, how recording studios work is they have to have clients, and most of the clients are going to be recording artists, right? But if the recording artists aren't going to those recording studios, they can't make money. No matter how much they can do a studio tour, they can have some of the best cream of the cream gear, staff, they can sell it. And a lot of times if you watch these commercial studios where they'll do a tour, and it'll be YouTubers, sometime will do tours of these studios or whatever. And then sometimes there's producers or whatever. They all do tours of these commercial studios, and they want to do the tour so they can promote what artists used to come there to draw in more clients. That's the object. That's the psychology. It's typical marketing business practices where you can try to say, look here, hey, 50 Cent recorded here, or Alicia Keys recorded here, or Mary J. Blige, or Janet Jackson, or Look at all these albums they made here. They record, of course, that's so that can entice people to say, oh man, all those type of artists recorded there, but it's still a business where people still got to pay whatever their hourly rate that they're going to charge because they got a staff of people, they got gear, they still got to pay the lights, water, gas, they still got bills to pay. And if they can't get clients, then they eventually go out of business because they're not making any money and they can't pay their bills. So I was thinking about the recording studio and recording me. That's why I've had people on here, even on my channel, about wanting to start a recording studio business, but it's the cost to build a commercial studio. It is not cheap by far. And I don't have that kind of money. I just don't. You're talking to build a state-of-the-art recording studio, you can get up in the millions, and I don't have millions of dollars like that. So I got some people viewing the channel. So welcome if you're, like I said, I'm just talking about recording studios, and I decided to start a audio engineering class to talk about basic stuff because I believed I believe that everyone knows with today's climate, with everything is skyrocketing in prices. Really everything's in trouble economically, not just the recording music business, the whole entertainment business, retails and everything else. Main says I was where you go live. Well, it's not me. A lot of times it's you gotta think about this for a second. A lot of times it's because you got if you got YouTube can only handle so many, and there's millions, it's probably 1 billion people on YouTube because it's a Sunday, so they're trying to handle all this data. So it was streaming and going live for about 15 minutes. And it was just, what happens is when I go live, of course I put in my subject, what I'm going to talk about. And then after that, I hit go live. And after that, it'll just keep going like this until it goes live. And it was doing that for 15 minutes. And I just the network. So I had to restart the computer, restart the modem and router and all that, just the trigger so I can get because it's kind of like a cyber network thing where YouTube is trying to see my IP address and all this other stuff, and it's trying to connect. And if it's whatever. So I had to start a whole new IP. It's kind of like domain host configure protocol, DHCP. So I had to request a whole new to go live. So that's the technical reason why it was taking forever. But I'm just talking about recording studios, or I'm talking about the business itself and recording school. Like I started because it really bothered me on the recording, just schools in general. Just like you take someone, let's take I'll say the University of Houston as an example. And let's say someone goes to University of Houston for a business degree or whatever. And 4 years of University of Houston, and that's in-state tuition. If you're an in-state student and not an out-of-state, $20,000 a year, whatever. And it's like the cost of it is so astronomical what they're charging for degrees. And the return on investment it's only about 15% can actually land a job after school. And that's usually the Ivy League schools like Vanderbilt or Rice University or Harvard or Princeton or Cambridge or Stanford. All the irregular colleges, so it's kind of like if you go to Full Sail and get a 4-year degree with the amount of recording students, like let's say you went to Los Angeles Recording Studio school for audio engineering, hoping that you're going to land a job at the record plant or, United, whatever. But that does you no good because those studios are closing. Capitol's even closed. So it's kind of like I spent the degree and everyone's building their own home recording studios. Some people are building commercial style type recording studios in their home. So it's kind of like, is it really worth? I'm like this. I know it can be kind of stressful trying to learn on the internet, but at least, even though it's trying to learn, because there are people that say there's so much bad information out there versus so much good information. You're trying to decipher, and a person that doesn't know, they don't know if it's bad information or good information or whatever. I still would take the chance to try to learn from the internet as much as possible. Like people like Produce Like a Pro, like Warren Hewitt, or even on my channel, or there are channels like that teach, and it's free. That's what I would do. I'm not spending $80,000 on, to try to learn something that has no guarantees. Like going to college. I got my degree in cybersecurity, but I don't have a job in cybersecurity, because even though I have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and I know how to do black hat infiltration, white hat infiltration, network penetration, I know systems like Wireshark and all that. The problem is when you apply for these jobs, the first thing we'll say, well, I have a degree. How much experience do you got? Well, I just came out of school. I have an experience. I have a degree. I only got what they taught. Well, we're looking for about 4. And even on that, I don't want to get into that, because a lot of that they can discriminate too. And I don't mean it's not discriminate means nothing that has nothing to do with race, but a lot of times it has to do with, most jobs are only hired if they like you. If they don't like you, no matter what your experience and degree and everything else, if they have a vibe that they don't like, they're not going to hire you. So I got chats coming in. Okay. Welcome, Seven Sons. Anyhow, welcome, Maine, and Andre and Seven Son. Okay. We got some chats coming in saying, Seven Son says, being that music is basically free for consumers, artists can't afford to make the product in recording studios. Most artists get lick or no return on it. Yeah, think about this for a second. Almost all your Grammy award-winning artists that's been in the business now, from Dr. Dre to Mariah Carey to Mary J. Blige to even when Whitney Houston was alive, Prince had his own recording studio. Whitney had a recording studio in the house. Mariah Carey has a recording studio in the house. They hire engineers. So that's usually, if you're going to have an audio engineering degree or certification, you basically want to, and the chances it's more going to be networking to try if you can get on with any of those private recording studios. The chances are you're going to have to know how to network to get in someone to get in some artists. But Prince had engineers. It's just that you know how to get connected with those engineers so you can work, when Prince was alive, because you go to Paisley Park and record and all that. Because Prince, he brought a lot of artists to his recording studio. Prince was smart about the business. If you ever seen any Prince videos, Prince was super smart about the business. That's why he was smart. The same thing with Eddie Van Halen when he was recording at Sunset Sound. Then he opened up his own recording studio. They were doing, you think about that. He back in the 80s, it was more efficient to open up your own recording studio. George Duke, rest in peace as well, recorded out of his home, out of his own, used to be called LeDunk Recording Studios. All his albums came out of his own house. So recording artists, recording studios, it's a business. This is why some of these recording studios, they entice people. Say, yeah, it's kind of like East West, and they was talking about, yeah, this is Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole and all these artists recorded here. Yeah, but I don't listen to Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra's before my time. So I'm just saying. So I'm not going to be impressed with it. Now, if you start talking about artists that I can relate to, I might be a little bit more, but that's just me. Um, so I don't think it's the recording studio, and plus it's so expensive to build a state of the art recording studio. It's just so expensive, from the walls to the cabling to the ground system to build to construct it right. You can get, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it right. And that's if you can get a building. Most of the time, those recording studios don't even own the building. Anyhow, good evening, Andre. Um, Welcome. And some said, at least back in the day, they could press up and sell it independently out of the truck. Now they have nothing to sell because music is online. But yes, when you think about it, my part of not only me being a musician and wanting to do this, because I got started in the early 90s. I got started with bands. So 1990, really, 1991. I started playing on 6th Street with a band. Yeah, I'm telling my age, but I can't run from my age. Yeah, because live venues, nightclubs and performing for people in clubs, that's still part of the business. Anytime there's money being made, you're in the business. But what I used to love doing is I used to love going to a record store to see the latest artist was putting out the latest album that they put out. It was an experience. You go to the record stores and listen to the artist. Oh man, let me see what new music. Mary J. Blige just released her new album. Let me go out there and you would literally go to the record stores to check it out. Especially if you heard it being played on the radio, you're like, this is WKTV. We got Mary J. Blige's new Reminisce album. They're playing it. You're like, oh, that song is fat. They say fire now. We used to say fat. Oh man, that's the jam. Slang changes, but that's what and that was the experience. You go there and you see the posters and you get a chance to, and you bought the album. That was all part of it. And then when you got the album, you could open it up and read the credits and get the lyrics. Some of them had the lyrics and then the producers and where it was recorded and all that. And that was part of the experience. But now I just, the access, the internet for me, kind of ruined it a little bit, the experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all love to have the access to be able to go to YouTube and Google, YouTube and search a video or a song of an artist that we like, get on the internet and find an artist that we like. But at the same time, that also help the artist, even though majority of us going to crooked record labels, but still, it definitely helped the artist. But so let me read some more comments. As Andre says, when you have the degree, they also tell you that you're overqualified. Some jobs will. Or sometimes you can have too much. If you got like me coming out of the Army with I have several MOSs in the Army. And I had, several skill sets. Plus the Army, they always send you to these little schools like bus driver or master driver or hazmat and all these other certificate schools that they send you to. And you can apply all that to your resume. And a lot of times when you start filling up your resume, they start looking, oh, this guy's overqualified. He's going to want so much money. And most of the time, these companies don't want to pay. So they're going to tell you you're overqualified simply because they just don't want to pay what you feel you're worth. Even though most of these companies could afford to pay it, they just don't want to pay it, So Maury Cinemax says, welcome. He says, how's it going? I'm good. I'm doing my Sunday evening chat. Just doing my Sunday evening chat. I'm talking about recording studios and the reason why I decided to start me an audio engineering class session. I'm on class 3 right now. I talked about microphones. I'm going to talk about preamps and compressors and EQs because I think all that stuff is so much is out there. Why charge for it when it's so much free information? Why charge it? If people are very intuitive, they can figure out Why am I paying someone $5,000 to learn about an equalizer when I can go on the internet and learn about equalizer? I just go to how the equalizers work. Just go to YouTube and type in how the equalizers work, and videos will pop up, and there'll be some really good videos on how equalizers work. So I was like, why charge for that? You're gonna find it for free anyway. So so let's see. Oglapix says good morning. Oh, you must, yes, right. I think you, some people are in different time zones. I keep forgetting. Good day or good evening, Mark, and everyone. Yeah, good evening. Welcome. The man said my artists are from the 70s. And music is my artists are from the 70s. Of course, I was in the 70s, I was, dependable, but I was born in 1970. So I would say I'm probably more 80s and 90s, but I did listen to 70s artists like the Doobie Brothers, and I did listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and just I did listen to quite a few 70 artists, Captain Antonio, and because plus on top of that, my mom used to play Al Green and artists like that, Maze. So yeah, I did listen to those artists as well, but I'm more 80s and 90s. DL says, "Hello, Mark. How are you? How long did you start the live?" Oh, I try to go live at 8 o'clock, but the internet and the way, sometimes when you got billion people on YouTube, sometimes it won't go live like it's supposed to. So that's just, a lot of that has to do with the internet. So I had to restart, try to start it over again, and it didn't kick in until about 8:25. So I've only been alive for about 20 minutes now. So I'm just talking about recording studios and recording business. Like a lot of times I think if if the music industry was like it was in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where it was booming with recordings, record labels, recording artists, people were paying for music that, people were direct, even though they were crooked, and people were, were CD sales, and it was $1 billion industry like it used to be. I would almost say, without the ridiculous inflation, it would, yeah, definitely go to school, because the recording studio business was booming. But if you think about this, if the record industry business goes down, what are recording studios really for? They're designed, recording studios are for recording artists to record at in the business. If there's no recording business, then there's no need, you're not going to have recording artists. So that's going to kill recording studios. And I think that with that being said, of course, when there's the recording industry declining, recording studios are going to decline, because recording studios are for recording, is for the recording business. And I think that with so many people, it's gotten cheaper to do recording studios in your home, because the tools that you need to record at home are not as expensive as it used to be. You don't need a $500,000 Neve console anymore. You don't need a $25,000 tape machine. You don't need $250,000 worth of outboard gear, $100,000 in microphones, and you just don't need a $500,000 constructed, built live room and control anymore. Everyone can do this with a pretty nice interface. Their DAW, I call them VRSs, plugins, on your Mac or PC, some decent studio monitors, some headphones. And if you do it right in your DAW, 95% of people in your audience can't tell the difference anyway. It's so much cheaper to do it that way now. You got people like Michael Brower and Andrew Sheps realizes that's what they sold a lot of their gear. And even Crystal Algae is a website he's got called Analog now. He's selling excess gear because I'm sorry, folks. I love hardware. I'm not giving up my hardware. I'm not giving up my outboard gear. The plugins just are way cheaper, and you're getting dang near the same results now because computer systems are better now. Everything's 64-bit systems now. They're not 32, where you can hear CC plus. What do you want to call it? C plus plus. The programming you can hear 32-bit. Like, oh, that definitely sounds digital. Now with 64-bit Macs and PCs, not so much. You're like, dang, is that really? Is that a real 1176? That's what you're doing now. That's how good the plugins have gotten. Us old, I had to come to realization that's just the way it is. You got a lot of old school people that don't want, there's nothing can replace analog. And I'm like, no one's telling you to replace your analog. It's just saying that digital plugins sound as good as analog now. You don't have to replace your analog. I'm not giving up my console, my outboard gear. I'm not. But that plugins are not going to replace that. But it's an alternative. It's as good as. We just have to come to a realization. That's just what it is. I always make these arguments with like car analogies and photography and everything else. I guarantee in photography that people that used to actually use real film and had to take it into our dark room, and they used to laugh at DSLR cameras. Oh, that'll never replace good film. Now you can't even, how many people are buying film and getting a dark room and processing? People aren't even doing that. And now even DSLRs are on, people really aren't the DSLR because of smartphones and what we call them, not even DSLRs, but what's the other camera? I'm drawing a blank on it. My mind is drawing away because I'm getting older. So people aren't even using DSLRs anymore because you got the newer cameras now, like the R5s and all that. It's like, and then a lot of them connect to the internet. That's the reason when people like Androids and iPhones, because you can take a picture and instantly send it to Snapchat or Instagram. You can take a photo, and then most of the photos look pretty darn good now. So let me read some more. So Scree says all the way, airborne all the way, jumpers hit it. So this I use a keyboard to play a VST. I need to start arranging my tracks, recording vocals, and then practicing mixing. I've been feeling very uninspired and unmotivated to do any work lately. I should be working. No, he said, do I need to rewind it live? No, you don't have to. I started late. Is the internet caused me to start late, so you didn't miss anything. So there's no go back. Let me tell you, deal. You feeling uninspired. Let me tell you, I got 42 years of playing the keyboards. I have everything I need in my recording studio to produce a commercial ready industry professional record, and I can feel uninspired. It's just the only way, what keeps me going is when I'm on playing on my different boards and I'm playing different sounds, and the sounds that inspire me to hear ideas. That's all I can do. But you trust me, you're not alone in this. There are a lot of people that can feel uninspired, and kind of fill in the rut. So I get in that sometimes. Sometimes I'll come here, I hadn't turned this stuff on in weeks, because I'm not producing as much music as I had been, and I need to start doing it as with every possible tool and every software plugin. Yeah, I really should, but so it's just one of those things. So I inspire myself by just playing and start experimenting with sounds to see what I can think of or what I can come up with. That's what keeps me going. Mirrorless. I could not think of that to save my life. Mirrorless cameras. So going back to my point, I'm glad you said that. It's kind of like people, it's like that. If you look at everything that used to be around, I was watching a whole bunch of episodes of, the Titanic, And they're inspired. People are intrigued with the Titanic, even though there was the Lusitania, the Britannica, the Olympic. All these ships were identical, and some of them got sunk because we're in the middle. We're talking war 1912. It was in the middle of World War One, and they're crossing the Atlantic, and you had the Germany and all that, and all these the Japanese and all these World War One. So they had all these. They were sinking ships. But even if the Titanic had never sunk, it wouldn't have been around anyway because it was steam. Now that they got turbine and nuclear driven powered ships, the Titanic would have been slow compared to like a modern day cruise liner, like a Caribbean. It's a modern. If you get on the Titanic, yeah, it was a luxury ship for what it was, but everything is so outdated. The piping, the lighting, the way they get on a modern day like Royal Caribbean with modern, amenities. You're not going to want to ride on the Titanic. You're not, because it's going to be so outdated. It's kind of like using a rotary phone versus using your Android or your iPhone. You're not going to make a phone call on this rotary phone. You're not going to want to do that. Who's going to want to be, 2, 9, 3, 1, 1. Who wants to use a phone like that? No one. You want to get your. So we're so equipped with modern technology. No one wants to go in reverse. So the Titanic would have went out of commission anyway. That's my point. But yeah, that's the same thing. I was going back with the mirrorless cameras. Mirrorless cameras is modern technology. It's kind of like, because mirrorless cameras don't, the lens doesn't move. So they don't have to worry about it breaking after 100,000 clicks or whatever. A mirrorless camera, but it's just modern technology. So it's kind of like film cameras. Like, who wants to buy a film camera today? It's the same thing in the film world today with those big gigantic Panavision film cameras that they were making movies like Star Wars with film camera. Now everyone's realized everyone's adapted to digital cinema cameras today. Red, Epic Dragons, and the Area Lexus, and all these digital cinema cameras are like, it makes more sense. You don't have to worry about loading film anymore. You just, it goes to a hard drive and you can edit in Final Cut Pro or whatever, Adobe Premiere or whatever. Who wants to do the old way? It's just so much easier with the new stuff. So that's everything. Even the music industry, it's kind of like, why would I want? Yeah, tape machines are awesome, or tape machines were awesome. The 2-inch tape machines. But there is a video I was just watching. With a lot of engineers, a lot of people don't realize tape deteriorates. And the tape, when it deteriorates, plus the tape machines have to be constantly calibrated. You got to constantly clean the heads and all. It's just easier to either use a hard disk recorder like I got an ADAT or a Mackie or Foster, whatever hard disk recorder, or just get you. Everyone's adapted audio interfaces and just recording the hard disk recorders in their PCs or Mac. It just, they're using ADD converters. Almost even all commercial studios have a Pro Tools rig at least. And they realize this. Tape was just not. When you cut tape with a razor blade, that's a wrap. That's a wrap. If you cut tape with a tape, you can't uncut it. And tape is expensive. You're only getting about 15 minutes. You're running, especially if you're running 30 inches per second, that tape is like, it's like, it's moving. Before you're out of tape. That's why they would have, sometimes, bands would have 50 rolls of 22-inch tape, 50 of them for one album. 250, you think at $250, $300 a reel. And after so many reels, now we got to stop the tape machine. Now we got to open up the back, and I got to line it and look at the V meters and make sure to go back to 0 on channel 1. I got to do this. I got to adjust it. And okay. And I got this, it's another reel that you put on there is putting signal through it. and you're running it to get to align it. Then I gotta clean the heads and all this other stuff just to it's easy to work in a DAW. You never have to worry about that in a DAW. You just go into your DAW and the one thing about it, what's great about a DAW is the recall. It's going to remember everything that you did. You know, hit save, and when you open back up that session, it's back, including the plugins that you loaded in on each track. They come right back up. Bam. I'm not against tape. It's just everyone knows this makes more sense. So let me read some more comments. Oh, he said, yeah, remember George Lucas announced that he's recording the next Star Wars and completely digital instead of film. The fans was crazy at first, then they didn't say anything. Well, you think about this, 90% of every movie that you watch, whether you're watching the Avengers, Spider-Man, Transformers, you know, almost the movies come out today, they're either recording that on an Arri Alexa, maybe a Red Epic Dragon, could be a Sony Sonata, it could be Panasonic, but those are high-end digital cinema cameras. They're not film cameras. So the audience doesn't care about if it's film, because the audience, no one's gonna go to a movie, and it's the same thing I say with the music industry. No one's gonna go to a movie and say, I didn't like that. I didn't like that close range image using, because they didn't use Panavision's film camera on that shot. So I'm not gonna watch the movie. No one's who knows to even do that. No one even knows to do that. You know, I don't like that light propping. You know, I don't like that key lighting. I don't like the way they did the backstage lighting, and the jib movement was, they didn't use a whatever, I forget the name of the jib. You know, it's the you know, whatever, the high-end jib. It's like $100,000 jib. I didn't use that type of jib. So no one does that. No one even knows to do that. So let me see. Let me see. So we get some more comments coming in. I forgot to say, dear DJ Rootful, welcome. Let me see. So there's a beginning to be a resurgence, yeah, of people using 4-track and 8-track tape, cassette tape. Do you think it's a waste of money? Have heard people use tape for saturational drums. I don't know. I don't, you know, I really, you know, here's like, once again, I'll go back to tape, whether they, you know, everyone wants tape saturation or whatever. There are studios that still have 2-inch tape machines. And what they'll do is they'll record a band to the tape machine, and then they'll tape from the tape machine, bounce it into their DAW to edit it. But they want to get the tape saturation sound. There are studios that are doing that. And I'm not against that. I am not against that. It's just a longer process instead of just recording directly into your audio interface and directly into your. But if you want that tape saturation sound that's only going to give you that 2% difference that most people won't hear, by all means. But just remember, people that are doing that, they ran it at different inches per second. Like if you ran it at 15 inches per second, you didn't get the high fidelity quality sound, even though you got more time. You may have gotten 25 minutes at 15 inches per second, but you're still, if you're going to do a 10 song CD, you can best count on at least buying at least five rolls of tape. You're going to need that many. And so that's at least $1,250 at $250 a reel. To me, that just, to me, I don't even use a tape machine. I just record directly, whether I'm in a console here or downstairs. I go right into my interface, right to my interface, and record directly into the DAW. And if I want some saturation, I just use a plugin. That's just me, but everyone can do it the way they want to do it. And let me see what DJ says. Tape machines do sound awesome, but the maintenance and cost is not worth it anymore unless you are a commercial studio that wants that sound. And even for commercial studios, they had a lot of them. If you do a lot of tours, and I do a lot of recording studio tours, matter of fact, I got some just quite a few. I think I didn't look at, these are just recording studios that I looked at just on the internet. And of course, I've been to a couple of these. I ain't been to all these, but I've been to quite a couple of these. Hit Factory, Air Studios, United, East West, Village, Sunset Sound, Sound City. Sound City's closed. Conway, Paramount, The Record Plant, Abbey Road, Church Studios, BOP Studios, Barefoot, Blackbird. I've been to Blackbird. Treasure Isle, Sputnik, Smokestack, Electric. And I'm not going to read all these, but I got more on other pages, but it's literally, I must have seen about, and that's just the commercial studios. I've probably seen about 500-600 recording studio tours, a lot. And majority of everyone's recording interface DAW. Some of these commercial studios still have tape machines. Very few are using it. Maybe 1979 is still are using tape machines, and that's only the request of the client. But even they are just Pro Tools. It's just I just wouldn't want to spend the extra money for the tape. Like, you just don't get much time. I don't need to worry about running out of tape if I go directly to my DAW. If I got a 2 terabyte hard drive, I can record my 10, 12 albums on a 2 terabyte hard drive. I don't have to worry about running on just 3 songs of tape. And then worry about the tape being stored properly to recall it years later, because tape deteriorates badly. Especially if you don't have it in the right conditions. So you have to be careful with tape. Because if it deteriorates, that's it. The songs are lost. Let me see. Read some more comments. Oh, Dia says, or to make a track made with a VST sound, less digital, and maybe add some analog warmth to it, but it's worth it. Okay, is it worth the investment? Let me tell you on tape, just if you want the analog sound. I'm going to give you this scenario. I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say you record an acoustic guitar. If you have a good miking technique to record an acoustic guitar with some really nice microphones and a really nice preamp directly into a really nice AD to DA converter, it's going to sound good. And it's going to sound analog. It's going to sound like that guitar player. It's going to sound, if he's using an acoustic guitar, even if it's down to the quality of the strings and the wood of the guitar, it's going to sound like that with a really nice set of microphones to a really nice preamp, maybe a nice little compressor for the signal chain to go into a nice AD to DA converter into your DAW. And it's going to, if you record it right, it's going to sound good. You do not need to get tape to get the analog saturation sound. You just don't. Even if you record the tape, just remember every time you go through one source to another source, you got to worry about noise. Whether it's hiss noise, ground noise. You want to keep your noise floor as low as possible on the recording, because a lot of times on the internet they talk so much about mixing, they forget about the recording aspect. And it's kind of like, I can have, the best way I can describe this is, when it comes to recording, why the recording aspect is the most important, and not the mixing or the mastering or the manufacturing and distribution. Is the recording is the most important part, because the best way I can describe it is kind of like you take a cheap car and an expensive car. The difference between the two, and why a better quality car can hold up, because it's not so much of the big stuff that you can see, like the fenders and the lights and the seats and the dash and all that. What makes that car high quality is all the components holding it together, including an engine internals, better piston rings, better main bearings, rod bearings. All that stuff is what's making that car better. But that's the stuff that you don't see. You don't see the bolts holding the car together. You just see the car. So it's the same thing. The high quality of the recording is the most important part. But that's the reason why I want to concentrate on the recording portion. So now let me see. Oh, so as far as the tape, people don't use it for, it's kind of like, you can, all the recordings that I've done, and I'll demonstrate when I record, when I'm in my audio engineering class series. When I record something, you be the judge of it, or it's kind of like, if you're kind of curious of me not using tape and you want to hear something that I did, just go back to one of my videos that I did where I talk about Behringer and Cakewalk software. I did a video on that. I did a little bit of sniffing. You can hear it starts off with the sax, and that was recorded with the Behringer console. There's no tape involved in that at all. Just go listen to it. You don't really need the tape to get the sound. You don't. Because you're going to go through an AD to D converter eventually anyway, and the quality of your sound is still your AD to D converter, irregardless if you go to tape or not. It's still got a converter to go into the AD to D converter, because I'll say this and I'll say this again. Digital doesn't make sound. As much as there's an argument between analog and digital, digital don't make sound. So it's kind of like, well, then why is there the argument of analog and digital? What makes a good converter is its ability, its sampling rate, and how well it can reproduce the sampling rate. It's taking pictures of sound. It's sampling. That's why you set your AD to the converter to 44.1 or 48 or 96 or 192 or whatever your sampling rate is. That's sampling process, and a really good converter can sample that, converts it into binary, because computers don't make sound. It's all binaries, ones and zeros. So when you want to hear what's being done, it got to convert it back into an analog. So you're listening to what it sampled. When you listen to something that you're doing your DAW, all you did was listen to what it sampled. It's like when you take a picture with your camera, whether you use your Android or a DSLR or whatever, or even a mirrorless. When you take a picture, even right now, there is a it's a visual digital converter, allowing you to see the image of me on YouTube. Because the screen itself, it's the screen itself, the pixels. It's reproducing, your video card is reproducing and converting into an image that you can see. But what the computer is seeing is just ones and zeros. It's being converted. from video from the camera. So when it goes from my camera, my webcam here into computer, it's converted from a video image, I mean my room, into ones and zeros. And then it converts it, and the binary and all the computer algorithms that converts it, what it does is process, reconverts it back to the monitor for you to see me. That's the same thing as doing in your audio interface. That's why they're called ADDA converters. And so a lot of times when we're listening to, you're just listening to digital sampling when you're listening to your, and a really good ADDA converter sounds like music, like anything else. The same thing if you get a digital mixer or your ADD converter, or even your sound card in your Mac or PC, that's an ADDA converter. So it just sounds like when it converts back to analog, it sounds like analog. So that's why I'm so about the tape and all that. You know, if you have a really good ADD converter, like I have an Antelope Orion, that's a $3,000 interface. I also have Mark of the Unicorn, the A96 HD under here. Those are high-end AD to DA converters. So it sounds as good as the analog before I record it into my source, is what I'm trying to say. So let me go back to, let me read some more comments. You can refresh the tape into, let me see. So let me see. Go back. I missed some comments. Bumping the heck out of the. Let's see. Yeah, I've been bumping the heck out of the ADAT album. The ADT album. I've been loving it. Thanks for shouting them out because that is true talent difference. I really appreciate that. I'll kind of, I gotta get with. I was me and one of the guys, one of the producers, and the girls that when we did that album, that was done in the 90s, and of course that was done the old school way. And of course, we went down to a studio that had a 2-inch tape machine and it had an Atari concept console. But we started it. I started in the studio up in Waco, where I was doing, because DAWs weren't like they are today then. But yeah, that was the whole thing was trying to get those girls signed to a major label, and it was so many obstacles. So we ended up staying independent, and that's why I never got it got some play, and it's a long story. But yeah, that got the attention of some people in the business. That album did, and yeah, it was because of all and not having a lawyer and all this other stuff. I ended up going back on active duty. I went back in the Army on active duty, and I would just do my production stuff on the side. But yeah, that's a long story. But I really appreciate you bumping that album. I wish it could have gone farther than it did. But it is what it is. Let me see. Deal says, "Where's your vocal booth? How often do you record clients at your store, or do you do all your production and specs? Send out beats to art?" I don't record a lot of art. I don't send out beats to clients or nothing like that. I deal with just a few small local clients, not very many, because I'm not really an open studio, because this is my house, and you got to be careful of being open to your house, because you can also become. Not everyone has good intentions, especially they come in the house. Everyone coming in and say, "Oh man, he's got some nice." You just got to be careful. Because my house, if I had a commercial studio with security system and all that, and I would, that kind of, LLC and insurance and all that, and security and all that, I would, in a lock security and all that, it might be a little different, but no, I'm not in my house. I'm not bringing people like that off the street just to open up to the streets to random people, because just because someone's trying to, not everyone is trying to get into recording are good people. I'll leave it at that. My vocal booth is in this room. It's right there. I don't use an enclosed vocal booth, and I have to explain why I don't have an enclosed vocal booth, because there are vocal booths are, what's the word I can I'll say that for another day on why I don't have a vocal booth. I'll just leave it at that. So, welcome Zone Recording Studio. He says, I have a Mara Machine JH110. I'm not familiar with that one. So I can't comment on because I'm not familiar with it. So it's a understand. I work with tape and I would never do that again. Technology is, I'm the same way. I mean, I'm the same way. I still have ADAT tape machines, but even those, I still got them, let me see. Yeah, I still got some tape. Like this is weird. This is a typical ADAT tape, I got them right here. They don't deteriorate nowhere near as bad as like the 2-inch tape reels, but it's still tape. Yep. You literally. Oh, I need to put it back in the case. They would come at ADAT tape like this. So I have them as well, but it's just so easy just to record in your DAW. Because a tape machine, you only got if you got an ADAT, you only got 8 tracks. Then you got about multiple machines. So you get eight tracks a machine, 8 tracks per machine. I have 6 ADATs. 4 of the 6 work. So 3 original blackface, and then 3 of the XTs. The 3 XTs are right here. XTs are a lot better. I also have the ADAT hard 24-track hard disk recorder, and it just life's so much easier with the hard disk recorder. But I've been recording into my hard drive through my interface for years. I just prefer to record that way. Let me see. This I used to have a Rode NT1A mic back in the day. I like it, even though it's loud and super sensitive. Pick up everything. I had to interface with a lot of noise. I had to use it. Use a noise remover and remove. You got to remember also with that Rode NT, any condenser mic, you have to be careful how you set the preamp. So a lot of times, are you driving the input? How much output from your preamp and everything. That's basically what's going to determine how that mic is going to sound too. You got to look at the preamp and the entire signal chain, and are you running, what kind of compressor? Most high-end studios, one of the go-to signal chains was like, they might use a Sony C800 or Newman. Some people say Neumann or Newman. But it's really German is Neumann, it's kind of like a German because it's a European company. But we've been pronouncing a lot of those European countries wrong, because of English. But a U40, a U87 going through a Need 1073 and then maybe a 2-tech compressor, and that's usually the typical signal chain to record into. That would go into the console, which then would go to the tape machine, or going into your DAW. That was a pretty signal chain, but you have to basically, depends on how you set your preamp. So a lot of times, if you think the microphone's too noisy or whatever, a lot of times you got to adjust your preamp, because Rhodes are really excellent, especially NT1. That's a really good microphone. And I'm not saying that the microphone could have broken. The microphone could have broken, but Rode microphones are really good. I got NT2As, the 2As, and I love them. So just, you got to be careful how you set your preamp. So let me see. Oh, yeah, DJ was saying 1s and 0s. Yeah, talking about binary. Yep. And then let me see, SSJ Krillin. And I'm saying that right, SSJ Krillin. Just put a thumbs up if I'm doing it right. Sometimes some of your names, I'm not sure how to pronounce them. So if I'm saying it wrong, let me know. But he said there are 2 different methods of processing an electrical signal. Let me see, analog signals always interface with the output. Digital process is mostly at the front end with a user interface. So Yeah, he's just basically, how you were talking about the recording techniques. Zona Recording Studio says, I did do a session at my studio where I recorded the artist straight to tape. So yeah, it's going to sound great. And the thing is, here's the thing with tape. Here's my thing on tape, and I'll talk about tape again. If you can record the tape and you can record a song with minimum amount of takes and the minimum amount of editing, then tape would be a way to go. If you can get a band that you can record a band and they are super, super rehearsed, they know the song in and out, they can do it in one take. I'm talking about even the vocals, whatever. By all means, because tape, I mean, that's what we were listening to for the last 50 years before we went into the digital analog revolution after the 2000s. You talk 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever, that's what was 2-inch tape was standard. A Studer or an MCI or an Atari, that was standard. That was in pretty much every commercial studio across the world was a 24-track tape machine. Sometimes it's 2 of them. Your 48 tracks, so that was the standard. Sometimes they have 3 of them synced. They record in the orchestra. So tape is always going to be amazing. You can't beat tape when you can get first time takes, no editing problems or whatever. It's hard to beat. And this is the reason why they keep making audio interfaces better and better and better, because better sampling rate, better converters and all that to sound just as good as tape machines, because tape has been the standard. But the problem with tape is how many songs you can get on a tape and how much you got to edit it. And then you have to store it, and then how much you got to calibrate the machines. That's the problem with tape. And it just became so much easier to record into a DAW. And the things and how you can edit in a DAW, with all the editing capabilities in a DAW, tape cannot. A DAW will run rings around a tape machine when it comes to editing. This is undisputable. You think about that. And on top of that, a DAW can give you 75 tracks if you need to. All you gotta do is add tracks. Bam, you get a track. Bam, add a track. Or I can delete the track, or I can duplicate the track, or I can copy the track, or I can slide the track. I can cut the track. I can splice the track. I can move the track. And you don't have to worry about, or now I can time. You can't time, on the tape machine and make it. All of a sudden, this part of the song, I want to go from 120 beats to 100 beats per second, then to create this cool effect, and then go back to 120 beats per second in a tape machine. You can't do that. So, let me got some more stuff. Okay. Oh, so you got an off-topic question set. No, different between clip and brick wall. When and why I use both. When compress after clip, when clip after compress. Like you talking about a brick wall limiter. And when and why I use both. Let me see, through when and compress. Let me think about that one for a second. I'm gonna try not to forget that. Because that, especially clip and compression and all that, because compressions are dynamic control. You're trying to control peaks. And the thing is with digital, you gotta be careful with clipping, because unlike analog distortion versus digital distortion, most time digital distortion is not a good thing. So you gotta be careful when it comes to clip. Signal clipping. So let me come back to that. Jazz, let's see. Welcome, Jazzy LaMel. Said welcome to. I'm gonna try not to forget your off-topic question. Jazzy LaMel. It says I'm a new studio owner. In your opinions, are most studios booked every day, or is it even possible? The studios are going to be booked, and this is just, are going to be the studios that have been being used by the artists that been to sign the contracts, record contracts to recording labels, that always used to pretty much go to like the Hit Factory or Electric Lady out of New York or East West or studios like that. They stay booked because there are still clients that still go to those studios. There's still clients, but studios in general, like I would say the studios, like most studios, and even in Nashville, are pretty booked. But not every studio is going to be booked. Even if you can have an API or a Neve console, you can have LA 2A compressors and 1070, 1176 compressors and 1073 preamps and Pultec EQs and all that, and Newman microphones and Telefunkins. Not everyone, because a lot of people just don't have the money. And if you have a lot of overhead, you got a studio manager, if you got a studio manager, some engineers, some maintenance crews and all that, plus you still got to pay for the lights, water, and gas, and the utilities, the insurance. It can be costly. The overhead can be. That's my opinion on it. It's a competitive market with everyone. More and more people building home recording studios in their home. It's a tough market opening up a recording studio today. So I don't think a lot of them are as booked. That's why the record plant is closing, and record plant has been around for years. Capitol's closed right now, and everyone knows the history of Capitol Studios, and they're closed. And United, which used to be Ocean Way United, and Ocean Way and East West, East West and all that, they all used to be the same. Even Ocean Way is United is closing. It's just the money isn't there anymore. 89106 says, Mark, do you have an episode on patch bays or your patch? Yes, I actually do. All you gotta do is, I made a video a few months ago it's called Patch Bays and Why Do We Use Them? Just go back into my video archives and look at it. It says patch bay and why did I use them? And yeah, there. So you just got to go back and look for that video. Oh yeah, appreciate it. Said, hey y'all, don't forget to hit the smash and like. I really do. Everyone that's on here, please hit the like button. It just helps the video. It helps my channel. So please hit the like button. Thanks Scree Studios. I appreciate that. It does help me out. Hit the like button. Super Saiyan Jin Krillin. Okay, so that's how you pronounce it. Super Saiyan Jin Krillin. Okay, Jin Krillin. Super Sai, and am I saying Saya correctly? Saya or Saya? Saya Jin Krillin. Okay, so that's what the SS stand for. Super Saiyan and then Jin Krillin. Okay, all right. Zona Recording Studio said, I had an Izzy radar trading in for the radar converter box that goes into my Avid Matrix 2 via Dante. Rock solid and sound. Yeah, now Izzy radar, if you're going to have a hard disk recording system, if you can afford it and you want to record through a hard disk recorder, they are stellar. They are stellar. They got high-end converters. It's a hard disk recorder, and you get the not only you get the box, but you get the controller with the meter bridge, and you can block. You can do quite a bit of editing, and I think some of the Izzy Radar even allows you to do editing like we would do it in Pro Tools. The thing is, Izzy Radar is super expensive. So, but they're awesome systems. They are awesome systems. Let's see. Oh, I'm just saying. Well, he's talking. I say, okay. Mamie said, not to mention you can do a lot of vocal takes and edits using it. Yeah, it's they're always going to be, and there are people even that came to my channel and asked me about, there are people that are still tape machines, large format consoles, and a lot of outboard gear. And I can't talk about the console and a lot of outboard gear. I got a console and a lot of outboard gear. I would still say to this day, there's no wrong way to do your recording. There's absolutely no way right. There's no saying you got to use an interface and use Pro Tools, or you got to use a hard disk recorder, or you got to use a tape machine, or you got to use a console. This is the reason why we have options. I think every option works. The thing is, it boils down to the skill set of the user, irregardless of what you're using, whatever tools you're using. If the person is good and the songs are good, the tools that they use, apps really don't matter. Don't matter if they use a console and a tape machine, an outboard gear, or they used an interface and plugins. It really absolutely does not matter. But there are going to be people on the internet that's going to say it does matter. I'm like, no, it doesn't, because the audience can't tell. There's no audience going to sit there and listen to music and say, no, I'm not listening to that because you recorded on you didn't use a Neve VR 88 console. I'm not listening to your music. You'll never hear that, ever. If you hear that, because they've been paid, if you ever hear someone say, oh, yeah, I can tell that you used a Telefunken U67 microphone going through you went through an API 312 preamp going through a Tube Tech CL1B or whatever, and you ran it through an EVR console using a Studer 800 tape. Yeah, I can definitely tell on the recording. I'm going to be red flag, immediately red flag. Like, wait a minute. And you're not, the only way anyone would even remotely say that, they would first have to be in the recording business to know that, to even have knowledge of that. So I'm going to be suspect if you ever hear someone say that. So it says, Mark, do you ever use virtual instrument choirs with work builders, word builders? I'm not, I don't use word builder. I'm not familiar with word builders. Virtual instrument choirs. I do use choir sounds, virtual instrument choir, not, but I use a lot of them coming out of the boards. But as far as word builder, I don't know what that is. So I can't give any thoughts on that. Do I need to do new more and better tools? Like I said, I'm not familiar with word builder, so I can't comment on it. Okay, Quanyabs. Welcome. It said, do you have any extra power supply? I have the same K2 really need it. I have the same K2, really need it, please. Are you asking, do I have an extra power supply? Like, do I have one to give? Well, and I'm just not understanding the question. So, Almain says, and you can also use Melodyne. Melodyne and Autotune, I really don't use very much because the artists that I use can actually, I'm not being picky on people, but they can actually sing. So they know when they're singing in key, when they're not, and when they're not singing something off, we'll just go back and retake it. So, but Melodyne is just one of those, I have it, I just don't use it much. So, all right, now, let me see. Andre says, when people can tell what gear is used on the track, then I will buy it. Like I said, half the time you can open up a CD and you won't even know what studio is recorded at. So So yeah. If someone could tell me what kind of equipment you're using on the track, I'm like I said, that's gonna be a red flag. Yeah, he said he just yes, Jaquilin just saying, yeah, just reiterating what I just said. He just solidifying what I'm saying. Yep, everyone just solidifying what I'm saying. Say, do you have one? I ain't hear I ain't he- I ain't hear you. Let me see. Yes. Yes, I'm asking. You talking about do I have one? I don't I don't have gear I can give people. I just don't. Now, if when it comes to gear, you know, I mean that I don't know why would anyone ask, someone on the internet if they have gear they can have from someone. I don't that makes no sense to me. Um so now do I have extra power supplies? Yes. For me, yes. I have extra power supply for this. I have extra power supply for my console downstairs. Um but do I mean I have extra I have extra studio monitors, but I don't have them for people that watch my no, I don't. Okay, so Jazzy Lamel says, how do you get new clients and how do you find serious ones you will keep coming back? Um, for me, like I just got finished. One of the clients I have, I've been working with her for years, and we're gonna finish up. We were supposed to finish this Christmas album last year. We're gonna finish it up. She asked me about it. We're gonna finish it up, so we can release it. Um, I got another gospel artist. I gotta contact her. Um, but a lot of these people I meet through social networking, like at my church, um, just other musicians and producers um, that I talk to. They'll refer me. Um, and as far as keeping them, if you have a good I'll give you a scenario, and I'll talk about this situation. Um, I did a video on this. It was a couple that came out of DC, and it started with good intentions, but they started doing some backhand stuff, and then it came to the point that if I almost came to the point where it came to a point where they didn't think that they were going to get where they want to get in their career just going through me. And basically they didn't trust me, so they try to make it look, it was kind of a conniving situation. So situation like that I won't do again. um but I think the way you keep clients is, as long as if you put it like this, I would say no one wants to work with an a-hole. um no one would work with an a-hole. Just if it's like this, if the client was an a-hole, I wouldn't want to work with them again. If I'm an a-hole, of course they're not going to want to work with me again. So you have to maintain a good balanced relationship. And I think if people like your work ethic and you can produce and you can actually make a good product and you can do what you can in your recording studio, they'll come back. They'll definitely come back. But just keep in mind, you're going to get bad clients. That's just the way it is. It's just going to happen. It's, this, because not everyone in this business is in the business for the right, reason. There are some bad people. That's the best way I can say that. You said, "Oh, I'm asking where can I find one?" As far as power supply, like for me, I get them. I look at places like Reverb. I look at eBay. I mean, when I found my power supplies, I found them on eBay. My power supplies for this, and then I'm always on Reverb as well. A lot of my gear came from Reverb. Sometimes I've gotten some stuff out of the pawn shop. I've gotten stuff out of at Guitar Center. I've gotten stuff from Vintage King. I've gotten stuff from Sweetwater. I've gotten stuff from Musicians Friends. So I'm always online looking for gear. So that's the best way I can say. If you can find one, you just got to Google search, and most likely, Reverb, um, or eBay, especially on older gear. You're gonna, because it's hard to find older gear. It really is. Um, it really is. Sometimes even Facebook Market, a marketplace on Facebook, and even uh, Craigslist, maybe. That's all that's the best way I can say on that. Let me see. So, oh yeah, saying where most of my equipment is from Sweetwater. I use Reverb for used gear. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I don't buy everything. Not everything I got is new. A lot of stuff I got is used. But how I gauge it is I try to gauge it on the seller and the condition and the photos and everything else. It's a risk. It is a risk. But that's the best way I can gauge it when it comes to buying gear. Like for me, this console, I got this from a church because the church went digital. So they just wanted to get rid of it. They didn't want to freight it and try to ship it because it would have been astronomical to ship. $300-400 to ship this large console. So I drove 5 hours to get it because the price was so cheap. I'm like, how much you selling that for? Oh yeah, I'll drive all the way for free. Yeah, I'll definitely make that a day road trip. And sometimes you have to do that too. When it comes, if you can come across a deal, and you might be a 3, 4, 5 hour drive to go get it, and it's a deal. Yeah, why not make it it's a road trip for me. I'm like, yeah, I go down there, take some time off, go down, pick it up, do a little sightseeing, pick it up, come on back, get some lunch or whatever, make a trip on back. And now I got this and I lifted this heavy console, brought this joker upstairs by myself. I literally stood this thing vertically and walked it up the stairs. So that, I mean, if I come across it, like one of my Avalon 7, I drove to Nashville to get that because I paid $1,700 for that Avalon. So I went, yeah, he's like, how much because those things are $2,500 to $3,000 a piece. He's like, well, I got it for $1,700, and I didn't want to ship because I like, if I go pick it up, I ain't had to worry about it getting broken. Because I've seen UPS drivers and FedEx drivers and something heavy ages because it's heavy. They don't, even though it can be marked fragile, do not, fragile. Some of, because they like, I drop it. That's why I got Ring cameras and cameras to watch them. I'm watching you a-hole, throw my box. I got an expensive piece of gear in that box and you tossing it. So I'd rather, if like, for example, I'm only about an hour from Nashville. So if I can go to Nashville, if I got a piece of gear, I don't care if it's a microphone. If it's in Nashville, I'm going to drive and pick it up. I can look at it. I can check it out. I can physically look at it before, because once they shipping is gone. So that's just my thoughts process on that. But yeah, as far as reverb and gear, and like I said, when I buy gear, it's a risk. It's a risk. I've gotten some gear that, broke. Now, you pissed. It's happened. So, oh yes, obviously, yeah, same here, laughing out. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just, I should be on board of directors of Sweetwater with the gear I buy. As much gear I buy, I think I should be on the board of directors from eBay. As much gear. I'm looking at it. I'm sitting there. I mean, because when you get because not only you buy gear, they can rate your star rating for you as a buyer. I was sitting there looking at all the stuff I done bought on eBay. I'm like, good night on my, I done bought. Sheesh. Appreciate A Banks on the likes. I really do appreciate that. It says, do I ever critique different recording rooms on your channel? Actually, no one's ever sent me anything for me to look at their room. As far as room, it's funny. I'll talk about my own room for a second. A lot of people, when they watch my videos or they watch me do tours, they think I have acoustic problems in here, you know, and I actually do not. It just worked out. One, some of the angles, these walls are not flat. These wall, like this wall over here, is angled. This is angled. Plus, the room is completely carpeted. So it worked out acoustically. And my other setup downstairs in my front room, it's weird. It worked out. I don't have any acoustic problems in that room. You would think when you look at it, oh man, you need acoustic panels and bass track. It worked out. I got lucky. But now, because I don't have the reason why I don't have a lavish like a cloud and I got panels and all this weird angle corners up, because it's a house. And I'm in the market. I'm just waiting for the market to drop. I want a bigger bonus room so I can build a control room and live room. That's what I want in my house. I want to make it, and so I won't tear up the walls of the rooms and I have to build all these acoustic panels and do all this stuff in this treatment and yank the carpet, all that, because I don't know how much longer I'm be in this house. I bought this house for my ex-wife. I didn't really buy it for me. I bought it for her. But when we got divorced and separated and divorced, I just stayed in this house. So the next house, I definitely will do the acoustic treatment panels and everything else and get an acoustician to come in and we can survey the room and all that. So I am in no way to critique someone else's room. Now, if they want me to listen to their mixes and I think that their mixes are coming out bad because of acoustic issues, send it to me. I'll listen to it and say, I can tell if it's a mixing problem. A lot of times when people's stuff is either too bright or too bass heavy, it's because they got acoustic issues for the most part, or maybe they just don't know how to mix. But for the most part, acoustics are real funny when you're listening to music through your monitors, because it can sound like there's not enough bass, and then you overcompensate in your mix, and then when you go out, like, wait a minute, man, this is all I hear is bass distortion. And that's because they're not hearing what they think they're hearing. They're it's not translating, and that's usually the acoustic problem. So DJ said, I used to work for UPS, and when they loaded up, loaded into the brownies, as they call it, or the brown trucks. Yeah, most of the time they throw the packages into a package car, especially during peaks. I can you imagine Christmas is coming up? Can you imagine? I think Christmas time, since you said you work for UPS, I would think this also with FedEx and even the post office. Can you imagine the amount of packages that they're trying to get out, that they're shipping across the United States or even overseas, the amount of packages, and from what I heard, especially when it comes to Amazon drivers, I heard, this is what I saw or heard, because of the time limit, they got so much time to deliver. Like an Amazon driver may have to deliver 1,200 packages in 8 hours. That's a lot of freaking packages. I just wouldn't want to be under that kind of stress. Yeah, he said, oh yeah, all of them, just way too many packages. It's seriously over. I believe it. I can believe it. I can't imagine the warehouses of gear and packages that can get lost. They have to have a serious tracking, because I've never worked for UPS or FedEx, but I'm gathering when a label's created, it's going to create a tracking system, and that's going to be tracked based on zip code and all this other, and that stuff has to be literally scanned, and then that's how it's going to direct which route is going to go. And then I imagine drivers are assigned certain routes, and and I know people get frustrated. I see it all the time on my next door app. Amazon driver delivered my package to the wrong address. Well, they can. I don't really always blame it on the driver. Sometimes it is, the GPS says, "Oh, this is 2224 Smith Road," and Smith Road is some house, and it's really not, where it is. I think that's why they start taking pictures when they drop the package off. I know FedEx does it. They take a picture that they dropped it off at the door. But then what I can imagine, some drivers, they go to some apartment complex that they have to deliver, and they can't even get in the complex because they don't have the code to get in. So that could be frustrating. But yeah, I've seen the horror stories. That's why I never wanted to go for UPS or FedEx or whatever. Or trying to deliver some package and they got 3 Rottweilers sitting on the porch. Oh, they won't bite. They won't bite. And them dogs sitting there. Yeah, you ain't getting your package today. You got 3 Rottweilers sitting on the porch, and you talking about they don't bite. Okay. Anyhow, yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to get back to I started answering a lot of these chats. So what? Let me the people that are on here right now. So what do y'all think about the recording studio, going to recording school, and the recording business? What do y'all think? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think, should I build a commercial studio? Do you think the recording studio business is lucrative? What do you think? What are your opinion on it? I would be curious to get some of y'all input on it. Honestly, personally for me, the recording industry right now, and everyone knows about the P. Diddy and all that, but so I'm not going to talk about that. I just think, honestly, I don't think the business model of how artists used to make it in the business is there anymore. Jazzy says he thinks it's oversaturated. In other words, the recording, if you look at the music industry, traditionally, it was the record contract, right? So it was the record contract. And how do people hear about artists? TV, meaning, and music video, and the radio. So that was the traditional way. And with that allowed people to go to record stores to buy that artist's album, and that made money for the artist based on their point system, which is small, that little 12%. And the record labels made a lot of money that way. But now the problem with the internet, I think the great thing about the internet is, like YouTube, anyone can find this channel. Anyone can find people. The problem is there are millions of people on YouTube. There are millions of people on SoundCloud. There are millions of people on Reverb Nation. There are a million people, going through TuneCore, and millions of people going through and got their, they're making their music and using CD Baby and DistroKid and 1RPM and all these distribution outlets and trying to get on Spotify and Pandora and millions. So the old system allowed you to find Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Prince, the Rolling Stones, YouTube, AC/DC. The old system worked. Even though most artists had to either renegotiate their contracts, it was so many bad things happening as far as artists being broke, but it's still you could be a broke artist and still get tickets to the Grammys because you're well known. You could still get some of those accolades. Even if you could be a broke artist, you can have a gold or platinum album on your wall, a Grammy award. You can still get invited to the Grammys, be part of the voting boards, and other avenues. You can still do tours. You can still get on the radio and do radio interviews and all that. That old system worked. But now it's billions of people on Reverb Nation. I don't think right now it's in chaos because there's no gatekeepers. So I look at it like, remember, it's kind of like Black Friday sale where people would line up, and they got the doors closed trying to get into Best Buy or Walmart, and the doors are locked until midnight. And it's a line of people, like hundreds of people line up because the doors are locked. And you couldn't get in until they opened the doors. And then when they open the doors, it just go ridiculous. You got people trampling people trying to get that PlayStation 5 or whatever. It's getting ridiculous. That's what the music industry now just. It's almost like a leaky faucet. You get a hole in the faucet, where it was contained. When you get a leak, now it's all over the place. That's what's going on with the music industry right now. There's no controlled system to it, and that might be a problem too. So let me see. Got some more comments coming in. DJ said you can build a indie recording studio from a studio shed. You can build, you can build a recording studio everywhere. Bedroom, garage, attic. It says, I think he was mentioning about being in New Jersey area, New York, New Jersey area. Believe it or not, I had my cousin. I don't know if he still lives in he used to live in Brooklyn. Then he moved to Staten Island. I don't know what borough he lives in now, but I haven't talked to him in a few years. I don't know if he still lives in Staten Island. I think he got tired of Brooklyn. I've been to Brooklyn. Over there by Brownsville and all that. Yeah, New York is his own. Like going to Manhattan, especially going down Manhattan is downtown New York. That's the bulk of all the skyscrapers and all that, and it's Empire State, but all Manhattan downtown. Expensive, but yeah, he lived in Brooklyn. And he moved to Staten Island because he's like, man, he got tired of the crime in Brooklyn. So, I said I'm too new to music to respond intelligibly, but the business model was based on marginalizing artists who have success to gear and distro with marginalized, and not just gear and distro, but just because the gear is for an artist, the gear is the minimum part. And even the distribution, the accolades for an artist is a successful career for being able to perform and tour and perform. That's what really most artists' goal is, to perform. The studio is just where you're going to make the music. So it's that artists don't, they're not big, on the gear. I mean, they care. The producers care because they want to know what gear is going to get the best results. But the artists, their main goal is performing and being able to stay relevant in the industry, to stay performing if they can. That's usually the artist's goal. Main says, turning 65 on election day and not trying to go into anyone's studio, so I do it out. Age has nothing to do with it. I say make music until like BB King was still making music and he was dang near 90. He played until he died. They buried him with Lucille. So they're about age. Hey, if you're a good performer, you're a good performer. That's just me. Let me see. So we got some more comment. However, as BlackRock and Blackstone absorb masses of the resources, companies, and commodities, they're reformulating macro purchases by which they profit, no matter what one buys. I have to research this, but I'm not familiar with BlackRock and Blackstone. I need to get back up on that. I should know about that. But anyhow, Jazzy says nowadays anyone who has a laptop and a pair of speakers, they call themselves a studio. I think the only way down to really make it is to teach these new upcoming people how to mix and work with the gear. Not just mix, teach people how to record. You got to record before you mix. Because some people don't even know how to record properly. The mix part is just fixing and getting everything manageable, what you recorded. But if you don't have a good recording, the front end, the mixing's irrelevant. But technically, it's almost a cliche to say that, with a laptop and a pair of headphones or whatever. But technically, if you look at a DAW, it's basically a recording studio. It's a virtual recording studio. That's basically what it is, because it's your tape machine, your editing, and then it's also your mixing console. So that's what's the two main things in the recording studio is the tape machine and the mixing console. Then outboard gear is just choices of gears, just choices of preamps, choices of compressors, choices of reverb units, choices of compressors, equalizers, and other gear. That's all outboard gear is. It's just choices of different brand names of different companies that make compressors. You got Universal Audio and all that. So it's just choices. But because you can buy plugins, so that's other than that, so basically, with the laptop, of course, you still need an interface. That's your converter, and so that's really the new recording studio anyway. Other than the space you're going to record it in, you still need to record or find a place to record. That's really what a recording studio really is. A place to record, a mixing console, whether you use a real one or the mixing console in your DAW, your tape machine, like my ADATs or a hard disk recorder, or you use build it in your DAW. It's a tape machine. So, but the front end, the recording, they got to get good recordings before you can mix it. But the problem now, as far as the thing when it comes to DAWs and companies like that make it, these companies don't care if you know how to use it. They just care. It's kind of like someone can buy a car and don't know how to drive. They're not going to stop you from buying a car. But if you know how to drive the car, you're going to most likely you'll wreck it. That's the best way I can use that analogy. A person that knows how to drive can buy a car. Anyone can buy a camera. Don't mean everyone can take good, photos. So but they don't care. They just, as long as they see the camera, they don't care if you know how to. They don't know if you know how to use the histogram or vignetting or good in a good crop or difference between 1.5 crop factor or depth of field or dynamic range. They don't care if you know all that, and they don't. Here, you want a Nikon D4 camera, here you go, here's a Nikon D4 camera. That'll be whatever it is. That's all they care. That's the same thing with Pro Tools and Logic Pro and every other DAW. They don't care if you know how to use it. So a lot of people can buy these programs and people can mainly figure out how to start to record, but they don't know all the tools because most people don't realize, I'd say you want to learn about your DAW, just start looking at all the functions and play with the functions. Make some tracks that you're not serious about and play with all the functions. Because every function about your DAW is there, but some people are like, well, some functions are hidden. Yeah, it can be a learning process. Says, let's see. Yeah, I agree. Access is the largest gain for artists, but it's hard to get the full throttle out there with 150 characters or less. He's laughing. I know what he means. But yeah, it's once again the music industry. The reason why we still know about Justin Timberlake, Katy Perry, Adele, Janet Jackson, Billie Eilish, and so forth. The reason why you still know about those artists is because every last one was still signed to a label, and the record labels, the ones that are still existent, have marketing down. This is the reason why. That's why you still know about The Weeknd and all these artists, because the marketing strategy these record labels use, they got it down. Versus all these new artists that that's all over, unless you just know or know by word of mouth, you just know whatever, you just happen to be searching the internet, it's hard to come across artists. It's hard. So, oh, you're asking me when you mix, do you mix on the board or in the box? Also, what's the track you normally have for mixes? It depends. Up here, I mainly mix through the console, and I'm going to use as much outboard gear as possible. Downstairs, I'll probably use more in the box mixing. Simply because I don't have nowhere near as much outboard gear downstairs. So I use more plugins downstairs. So I'm more likely to mix more plugins downstairs. So as far as tracks, the track, like I said, the style means I'm R&B. I'm an R&B guy mostly. So I'll have your typical drums, bass guitar, keys, strings, horns, other sounds, synth sounds, and then I have some tracks over for lead vocal and background vocals for the most part. That's how I normally do my tracks. And the software that I mainly use for the most part, like Studio One, Cakewalk, Reaper, Harrison Mixbus, I'll use mainly DAWs like that. I don't use every DAW. Some of the other DAWs I use, they're going to be in the box, like Reason Studio, Ableton Live, DAWs like that. I'm going to do everything all in the box. Those tools are just funner for me to use in the box. So as far as track count, you're asking track count. I'll use most of the time it's 24 tracks for the most part. Not all the time. Sometimes some tracks don't require 24. Sometimes it's only 12 tracks. It doesn't require a whole lot of tracks. Sometimes it's just a 2-channel stereo mix, drum stereo mix. Sometimes it might be drums across all eight channels. It just depends on the recording. So it really depends on the recording. So and what I'm doing. I could be doing like Christmas track I'm about to start doing again. They're going to be across all 24 tracks. Because I'm using my antelope 24 outputs from my antelope interface into 24 channels here. So that I'm going to use all 24. So okay. So let me see. C Funk. So great conversation. I know nothing about DAWs. I find them difficult. I guess I'm old. Let me ask you a question, C Funk. Welcome. So what do you use for recording? Because we were talking about tape machines earlier in the conversation. What's your recording source? Because I'm actually old school. I started in the 90s. So I'm from. I started with DAWs in the 90s when they were really, really limited. But we was using ADATs, and we're still, and of course, when we did our album, we recorded a 2-inch tape. So I was an ADAT heavy guy for a while. So what's your recording source for how you like to record? Andrew says, I find people try to use 100 tracks and it's a lot of repetitive. I'm not going to knock how many tracks people want to use. I just look at it like this. A lot of people, and this tends to be with a lot of hip hop or EDM styles of music, techno music, house music, or trap music or whatever. For some odd reason, a lot of younger writers, music creators, seem to think a lot, putting a lot of stuff in music, putting as much as they possibly can in music creation is the way to go. But if you look at it, because I'm old school, when I enjoy a good track from let's say I'm listening to, let's say I'm listening to most bands from the 80s. What was the most makeup of most bands? Most bands had one or two keyboard players, a guitar player, a bass player, a drummer, maybe a percussionist, a lead singer, and background, and then maybe some horns, a horn section. Maybe a trumpet, a couple of trumpet players, sax, and a trombone player. 3, 4, 5 horn piece section. And those horns, believe it or not, can be recorded to just 2 stereo tracks on the horns. Drums can be recorded between 4 and 8. A lot of times you may be up to as many 10 because you might have room mics. Other than that, keyboards, bass, because it's set the way it sounds, that can be a mono track. And then, guitar, you can stereo pair guitars or whatever. Other than that, everything else is vocals. That's why everything can be done on a 24-track tape machine. 24 tracks is all you needed for majority of 90% of that music. And then the larger, maybe if you were doing a big film score, a musical piece, or something like, like for example, where there were strings and orchestra pieces, maybe 32 tracks. On a console, may have 32 tracks max. You listen to something like I Want to Run You with Whitney Houston. 32 tracks max. So 100 tracks can be ridiculously overwhelming, especially for one little 2-bar sample. You don't need it. You're not going to hear it with everything else going in the music, unless it's a distinctive part that you're not going to hear it. I believe in recording the old school band way. That's just me. I don't tell anyone how they should record, but I just, when I see 100 tracks, that's unmanageable. Even if you have 100 tracks in your DAW, that's just unmanageable. You're trying to color code you're trying to all these tracks, and you try to color them blue here, red here. And then you can get lost because you forget that you color code purple all the way at tracks 89 to 100. You forget about them because you can only see tracks 1 through 30 on the screen. So, but it's like, and then a lot of times people are recording 2 channels out of their audio interface to their monitors. It's like, and then you got plugins all over the place. That's my take on it. Yeah. You're asking which Antelope interface? I use the Antelope Orion. It's called the Antelope Orion 32. It's in the rack. Do I gotta turn it on? No, I gotta turn it off. But it's the Antelope Orion. It's the Gen 3. Antelope Orion Gen 3. They got Gen 4 out, but I got Gen 3 because it's awesome interface. It's just you can't beat the price for the amount of inputs and outputs that you get compared to other audio interfaces on the market. Excuse me. You look at DJ Rufus, if you look at all the best hits of all time, they didn't have a lot going on. Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, if you go watch, I'll use AC/DC as an example. Black and Back. Back in Black, right? I said Black and Back. I mean Black and Back. Drums, bass, guitar. They may have had a couple of overdubs. And the mixer would every now and then would use drum sample overdubs. So you're talking maybe 8 channels of drums, kick, snare, toms, overheads, room mics. Then we're talking bass, guitar 1, guitar 2, guitar solo. Then you might have drum samples or whatever. Lead vocals, background vocals. That's what you're hearing when you listen to Back in Black. Or same thing with Def Leppard. Pretty much the same scenario setup of channels. 24 channels. 124 track tape machine. Listen to that, and it sounds full. It sounds full. Photograph. If you go back and listen to that Def Leppard song, Photograph, full. Most music was recorded 24 tracks because that's all you had. It was a 24 track tape machine. You go back to the Beatles days, they had a 4-track. You go to Def Leppard or Led Zeppelin days, they had an 8-track. They could only record as many tracks as they had. And the music, but now that people, they went crazy with the DAWs because DAWs can do 256 tracks. I'm enjoying why. That's just going to start to sound like clutter. But that's just me. So yeah, CC Funk said, yep, ADATs, Tascam Studio. Yeah, like me, I have ADATs. I love ADATs. Love them. That's why I still got them. Tascam Studio. DAWs, I would tell you, CC Funk, don't be scared of the DD. Don't be scared of DAWs. I did a couple of tutorials. They probably weren't super in depth. I did a couple of small tutorials on like getting started with Studio One and the Reason Studio. I still got to do some more, like how to do it in Cakewalk. I did a setup in Cakewalk before. How to do it in I need to do one in Ableton Live. I need to do some more DAWs, but I'm trying to get through this audio engineering class for the next 2 weeks. I'm doing audio engineering classes for the next 2 weeks. And then I'm going to do a 2-week keyboard playing tutorial for 2 weeks. But I'm going to get to the DAWs, more DAWs. Someone wanted me to do something with Logic Pro. I'm got to get to all that. It's a lot. So just pick a DAW. I would say pick one. Reaper's fairly cheap, $60. If you're used to old school, you might want to invest in Harrison Mix Bus. Harrison Mix Bus is built around, working around the old school system. Even the console is going to look familiar. The mixing console in Harrison Mix Bus looked like like an analog mixing console. You're going to like it if you like working in the old world, but you want to, because DAWs are inevitable. You're going to have to go to a DAW. But if you want a program that makes sure you are familiar, what's familiar to you, Harrison Mix Bus is definitely a program for people that are used to working in the analog world. I highly recommend it. Just said, nice. I have the Orion Gen 3 plus plugins. Probably would never upgrade to the 4 since I pulled the plugins and have they didn't change the converters. I don't see a need to go to the Gen 4 because the converters are the same. They just changed some of the functionalities that I won't use in Gen 4. I don't need them in Gen 4. So Gen 3 is working fine. So I'm gonna stay to Gen 4 and Gen 3 until I have to go to Gen 4. But Gen 3 is excellent. It's what I use, the Gen 3. And so what are your thoughts on the Summy mixers for those of us with no console or place them and you want to come out the box? Some people like the most overpriced summing mixer is that Neve 8424. I think it's the Neve 8424. They want $20,000. Let me Google it right quick. I think it's the Neve 84. Yeah, the 8424. They're trying to call that it's $25,000 at Vintage King. It's the most overpriced semi mixer ever, and you get nothing in it. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about semi mixers because I think I'm like this personally. To come out of your DAW to go into, I can understand maybe you want to use some outboard gear like some compressors or some EQs, maybe some reverb units or whatever, some external gear. And you might, whatever the case may be. I would just say run auxiliaries out for that very purpose. And then come back in the DAW, then just mix in your mixer in your DAW. If you're using Pro Tools, I would just say do that and then create a master mix using your mixer. That's just me. Because if you're going to come out, I'm like, if you don't have a console and you want to come out of your AD and mix analog, I would say these consoles are, if you do it right, I've seen 32 channel analog. He's like this 32 channels for like $800. At least you get the preamps and the EQ. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Let me move on because I really don't have a good answer for that. I just rather, if I'm going to come to a mixer, I just mix through the console. Me. So see if I'm saying I'm trying to go dog in. Like I said, if you get Harrison Mix Bus, I'll walk you through Harrison Mix Bus. I recommend that. And I'll walk you through it. I think you're going to like it if you're old school. But you can get Cakewalk. Well, Cakewalk's not free anymore. They went back to Sonar, but you can still get Cakewalk by BandLab. You can still download, but they're going to stop supporting it. And then as a DJ says, Reason also has the console set up as well. Reason has the Reason has the it's almost like the SSL. But the only thing with Reason Studio, my only drawback with Reason Studio is their editing capabilities on the sequencer portion. They got some limitations that I like better than other DAWs. I think Reason is also, I use it, but I just rather use some other DAWs for other editing purposes like Studio One or Cakewalk or Reaper and other DAWs. So let's see, the observers. So many factors have to come together in unison to make a hit album. Mic placement, choice, and most of all, performance makes a huge difference. AC/DC are amazing for. And let me go back to this on that, since you mentioned on mic placement and all that. On the mic placement is only critical if you're recording a source that requires a mic. For example, if someone's a hip hop EDM where they're just using virtual instruments, samplers, something like my MPC Studio, those are direct input sounds. They do not require mic placement. But if you're going to record a band, yes, mic choice and mic placement is critical. Not just the mic placement, but mic choice, preamp choice, compressors, all that's critical. When it comes to recording band, like drums, I think people mess drums the most when trying to recording a drum set. Simply because the mic placement or the mic choice, for the most part, like most people pick an SM57 or even SM58 on the snare, top or bottom, but the toms or whatever they might get wrong or whatever, or the overhead placement or whatever the case, or even room mics, capturing the room sound can be so. People can pretty much get it with the guitar amps, but the drums, getting the drums right. Let me see. Andre says, I find when companies upgrade equipment, they remove some of the uh, features, best features. Sometimes some features, it's so subjected on that. And I think it's simply because I think that some features you probably didn't need. Other features that they had on certain pieces of gear, it's what made the gear. Sometimes when these companies they make these upgrades, or I call them downgrades. When they take a piece of gear and they do something and it killed what the gear is, it's not an upgrade, it's a downgrade. So sometimes it's a newer downgrade. It's not always for the best. And I can get turned off on that. That will turn me off. It's kind of like I don't, it's like the best preamp Personas used to make was their ADL 600 and 700. And they got rid of it. And it made absolutely no sense to me because that preamp, those preamps are the same as, those were on the same level as Need 273s, API 312s or 512s, Avalon 737s, my Universal Auto 610, Dayton preamps, my Joe Meek preamps over there, and those were on that level. That made no sense why you would discontinue a high quality piece of gear. But that, I'm gonna tell you, Personas, what I learned about Personas is about making money. Really. And that's why they sold their company to Persona. Who they sold their company to? They sold their company to because they're about making money. Some of these companies that make gear are thinking about the customer. And that's why they continue to make the gear. It's kind of like the Universal 610. You can still buy that. Or like the Avalon 737. You can still buy those. Because the companies are thinking about the consumer. They're not thinking about, if we can sell 1 million of these, we can make $1 billion. And we can, that's why I'm kind of turned off on some of Personas' tactics. Even though I like Studio One software, they nailed it with the Studio One software. Awesome catching your live stream. Are you Sundays live? Yes, I do this on Sundays. I normally don't go over 2 hours. I'm over 2 hours. It's 10:30, but we're having such a good conversation. I normally would end it, but I probably going to end it in the next 15, 20 minutes because YouTube will eventually start to shut these down because a 4-hour live chat can be. So, but yeah, I'm Sundays. I try to do it at 8. I got a little started late because of the internet. I got started late about 8:25. So, but I'm Sundays. So if you can catch me on Sundays, that's what I'm gonna do, these Sunday live chats. So we were talking about recording studio and gear and all that. It says Reason seems super slow to add up-to-date features from what they will, because Reason's selling point is their virtual, believe it or not, it's their virtual rack gear. That's their selling point. More than it is the sequencer, because Reason for the longest didn't even have audio recording. They were just strictly MIDI using their virtual instruments. When they came out with that SSL style console, they nailed it with that. I just wish they would enhance the features of making it a little bit more realistic by improving the GUI of the console, but it's still awesome. So they nailed it with that, but the sequencer is still kind of lacking compared to other, like Pro Tools, how you can, the editing and capability in Pro Tools or Logic Pro or Cakewalk or Reaper and so forth. If they improve a lot more of how the sequencer functions and Reason would be nailing it. Because they got their virtual instruments that come in Reason is stellar. Let me see. So, they updated a lot And that in Reason 13 updates works a lot better. Okay, I don't have 13 yet. I need to get 13, so I'm gonna check out 13. So I'll check it out. So I'll take your word on it. If it gotten better, then I'll update the 13 if they gotten better, because that was the reason why I didn't use Reason more. Because if they had an awesome sequencer, then that would be a doll that I would tell anyone. That would kill a lot of if Reasons can make their doll do stuff like in Pro Tools, as an example, as far because Pro Tools, I got undying. It's an awesome. Their editing capabilities is off the chain. The same thing with Cakewalk and Studio One. Their editing capabilities is off the chain. If Reasons can do that, yeah, you would have a killer doll. Truth or dare, LA2A compressors or LA2A plugin, which, yeah, you know what? The consumer, I'm just have to go with the real one. Because I'm it's about the electronics. I think if you use the plugin, you'll be fine. But a real one, yeah, that's just Fender. Fender bought Personas. That's what, yeah. And sometimes when these corporations start buying, it's like what's going on with Guitar Center right now / Musician Friends. Is Luna a good doll? Yes, they're still working out bugs. It's a good doll. It is a good doll. I'm gonna tell you though, this is what I would recommend. This is what I want to recommend before you get Luna, because it's free. It's gonna be easier if you already know how to use dolls, then you can use Luna. But if you're kind of weak at using dolls, I would switch to something like Cakewalk. It's an easier doll to learn than Luna. I'm just going to leave it at that. Oh, Lace. Oh, thanks. You're the best, sir. And thanks for all you do. And it truly shows. I appreciate that. Thanks. I really appreciate that. I'm trying with this channel. I'm trying to, for what I'm trying to help people out as best as I can. So I appreciate that. I purchased a summing mixer, but I just found out running my 2-track master through an external preamps to color the mix and open the mix is sufficient. It really is. It really is. Summing mixers, unless I'm like this, if you're gonna go, it would be kind of easy if you got an interface that have enough inputs and outputs. I would say something like the Antelope as an example. And I know Antelope can be kind of expensive for some people. Some people can't afford an Antelope. But if you can get an interface that you can run 24 outputs and just run it through something like this console, and you can incorporate a patch bay with your outboard gear, I think the results and making your 2-track master through a console of this, doing it this way, I think you would be happier than doing a summing mixer. It's just me. Some people don't want to use, because these are big. They're not as big as SSLs or Neves, but it's not a small console. But you don't have to have 48 channels, 24, if you got the room. Some people don't even have the room for 20. They just don't have the room. I get it. But I don't know. I'm not really big on summing mixers. I'm just not. So just me. And then let's see, but does Reason even allow MIDI out, or is it still exclusive MIDI in? I have to check, because when I use Reason Studio, I use mainly all the instruments that come with Reason, and I also use the VST instrument, my own VST instruments that it sees, like my chord collection and the other DAW. So I just use all the virtual instruments in Reason. I don't use any I don't MIDI with other instruments. Matter of fact, I don't MIDI at all, really. I stopped using MIDI years ago, really, when it comes to instruments. I just record audio in. I don't MIDI my instruments. I run audio into my DAW. I play all the sounds from my keyboards using audio recording. That's how I do it. But I'm just saying, don't forget New Window. I had old version of New Window, but because I have Cubase, I stopped looking at New Window. I used to play around with New Window, but I didn't play around with it enough. So I use Reason for making music and Pro Tools for mixing stems, but I've been using Reason since version 4. So I know the ins and outs. Yeah. I've been using Reason when it was propeller head. I like the concept. So I'm glad when they start incorporating plugins and incorporating audio. That was the thing that was the problem with Reason. They didn't have audio and you could use plugins. But when they moved to vanilla, I think when Reason 6 or 7, when you can start doing audio recording, that's when Reason started getting better. Because I was going to abandon Reason, and they went from Propeller Head to Reason Studio. Yeah, Mark, you've been doing great, and I love it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate y'all, because my channel, I couldn't do this if I didn't have y'all, subscribing and watching the channel and doing a live feed and all that. So I really appreciate y'all being supportive of the channel. I really do. So I'm going to go a few more, then I'm going to go ahead and end it, because it's been 2 hours and 16 minutes. So it doesn't depend upon which some mixers, do this feature, or whether they're worth it, not compared to console. But many of us haven't. Yeah, I get it. That's what I was saying. I get it. As far as some people just don't have the space. But if you watch my studio tour, I did a studio tour where I call it a studio upgrade tour, where I started at my dining room. And that's not really an ideal place for it. I did it because I didn't want to come up here to turn all the gear. So I kind of built it and it just kind of got out of control there. I got audio interfaces sitting on my kitchen counter. I was married. If I was still married, I couldn't get away with half of what I do in my house. I couldn't, I got keyboards in the other room, drum sets. I got keyboards in the other room. I got stuff downstairs. I couldn't gotten away with that being married. But what I was saying is, with the studio set, that setup I got downstairs, where it's basically an audio interface. I got a little preamp, a little compressor, a little mixer, a couple of monitors, a little MIDI controller, and of course I got one of my tube mics down there for recording vocals. That is more than enough. You know what? I'm gonna make a track, and I'm gonna let y'all listen to it just using that. Because you can, and I'm gonna do everything just using the plugins and everything. I'm gonna try that, and y'all be the judge of it, because that's a lot of times that's all you need. That really is all you need. Jasmine, do you have a lot of competition in your area as far as recording studios? Not in this area, because where I'm at, there's hardly no recording studios. But I'm 50 minutes from Nashville. Yeah, the competition is ridiculous, because Nashville is the central hub of every recording star, especially country and western recording star ever. But they also there's a lot of blues, but there are R&B, there's even some hip hop artists recording in Nashville. But Nashville is booming. So the competition is ridiculous. And all your big studios like Blackbird, Treasure Isle, the guy Joe Carell that worked with Warren Hewitt to produce Like a Pro, he's the chief engineer at Treasure Isle, which is literally like next door to Blackbird. He's their chief engineer, Joe Carell. All in that area, even with Vance Powell of Sputnik Studios. If you ever go to Nashville, if you ever go to the Guitar Center that's at Paget Lane, it's on the south side of off of Interstate 65. Paget Lane. It's the Vanderbilt Hospital over there. Paget Lane, the Guitar Center. Across the street goes into this area of nothing but, that's where Blackbird is. And all those, it's nothing but recording studios over there. Because Music Row's where all the other big recording studios are in Nashville. But they're all over Nashville. They're all over. So the competition is ridiculous. So I would tell anyone, if you, good luck if you go to Nashville to open up a studio that and try to build clients, because all the big artists already go to the main ones. So you being they're not gonna come to an unknown, because you're not gonna have the credits to compete. It's a tough market. That's why some of those lower cost recording studios have closed, because they couldn't compete with Blackbird, because that's where Taylor Swift and you name it, all the big artists are going to go to Blackbird first. He has the biggest recording studio there. They're going to go there first. It's just the way it is. So, says we appreciate you guys. Like I said, I'm just doing what I can. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. It says Absurdist says a 12-channel Mackie is affordable and small. Many options available to have a console mixer. I'm big on consoles because the smaller ones, the only disadvantage to a smaller mixer, maybe the EQ may be fixed. They're gonna come with the fixed 3-band EQ. Usually the high, mid, and low, the high is fixed at 12K, mid is fixed at 2500, and the low is fixed at 80. That's common. And you might need to work an EQ control. So it'd be better off using a plug-in filter. But even electronics and something like that Mackie, for some odd reason, it just helps the sonics. It really does. So I find it hard to just be just interface only. Every setup I got is going through a mixer. Even the small setup downstairs is going through a little 12-channel mixer I got downstairs. Everyone is going through some sort of mixer. That's just me. So it has been 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's been well over the time. I really appreciate everyone tuning in, but it's time for me to close it up because I'll be here next Sunday, 8 o'clock. And my goal is to go from 8 to 10. That's the goal. And it's going on almost 11 o'clock my time here. I really appreciate everyone that's tuned in. I really do. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are really, really awesome. And makes me doing this live chat. It makes me worth doing these live chats. So I really appreciate it. And thanks, Jazzy, for subscribing. And we're going to see you next Sunday. And I really appreciate y'all. Once again, y'all have a safe night, or if it's daytime where you're at, y'all have a great one. And we look forward to seeing y'all next week. Thanks, all. We'll see you next time.